Okay, what's next? Oh, favorite new to you or Hello everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with the late mid-year freakout tag. So I originally had this planned for June, and then obviously June went out the window. So we're doing it late, but we're doing it. So this is pretty standard. I think everyone on Booktube does this at this point. I will leave all of the questions and everything linked down below. I've done this for like 3 or 4 years at this point, so this is nothing new. Play along in the comments if you would like to. Oh, I should also mention, I'm recovering from a cold, so if you can hear that, just ignore it. And also, we have a guest again. Peanut is over in the corner, so if you hear baby noises, I don't know if the mic will pick it up. So if you do, that's going to be like the standard on the channel at this point because she has to be with me at all times. She's unhappy if she's not. She is currently distracted, so we're going to try to bust through this rather quickly. Okay, question 1. Your favorite book so far this year? I am doing up to date. So like when I planned this, I had only read up to June. I've changed a few of my questions around, but this one is one of the ones that has stayed. And to this day, I think Happy Place by Emily Henry is still my favorite. It got 5 stars, clearly. It's my favorite Emily Henry book that I've ever read. It just, I think I read it at the right time because there's some stuff that happens in this, especially at the end, where it's about like a group of friends. It's really like, it is a fake dating of sorts. Our main 2 characters have broken up, but they haven't told their friend group that they've broken up, so they pretend that they are still engaged to kind of help this summer vacation that is going to be the very, very last summer vacation they ever have at this place to be the best one. So there's that's the main story, but it's about this group of 6 friends who kind of met in college or through their college friends or because they were dating someone in this, like, it was mainly these 3 girls who were friends and their significant others and other people that they added to this group. And it hit at the right time because like some of these people are like, they live in all different states. Some of them are having kids. Some of them are getting married. Some of them are deciding what their career is going to look like. Some of them are questioning what their career should look like. And so they're all over the place. And it hit for me because obviously in April, we hadn't had a kid yet. And so I think that part specifically, I cried at the end, like just not because there's anything bad, just because like it felt very real for me to have this like friend group. But take that away and it's still like one of the best romances I've read. It's like super fun and cheesy and I loved every second of it. There's a lot of chemistry. It's a second chance romance and I just loved it. I loved every second of it. And this is still, I like double checked. I went back and listed all my 5 stars and this is still my favorite, I think. The next one is your favorite sequel. And I literally just changed my answer because I have recently finished in like the last week or so Immortality by Dana Schwartz, which is the second in her A Love Story series, the first one being Anatomy. I love this book. I gave it 4 stars. It is definitely like, I'm really good at putting a lot of time between the first book and the second book, and the second book never living up to the hype. I read the first book, I think 2 years ago. I had forgotten a lot, but everything came back to me. Everything I needed to know came back to me. She was really good at kind of like throwing little hints that like, okay, here's the thing that you need to know that you might have forgotten, but it's okay because you don't need to know the details of it. You just need to know this one fact about it. And so she peppered in the things I needed to know really well in a way that like I didn't even process that that's what she was doing at first. I was like, oh, I just am remembering things really well. And I was like, no, she's just doing a very good job of like leading me where I needed to go. So I thought this was really, really good because like I mentioned, when I read sequels, there's a very good chance that the second book is never as good. And especially when I put this much time between. And I just really was worried going into this one. But I really enjoyed my time. I like flew through this. I've been having a really hard time flying through books here recently. And this one I finished, I think, in a few days, honestly. And I loved it. It was very well done. It's good, spooky, gothic kind of vibes. It does have like a lot of medical stuff, obviously, because like our main character, I didn't even tell you what this book was about. Follow our main character Hazel, or at least in the first book, we follow our main character Hazel, and it's set at historic Edinburgh, and she wants to be part of this anatomist society, like of surgeons and doctors and things like that. But she's a woman. Of course, it's a no-no. And she ends up striking a bargain with like the dean of this school or something. And he basically says, yes, of course, you can take the test to prove that you can be part of the society, but you can't come to any of the classes where you learn all the stuff. And so she has to kind of study on her own. So she makes this bargain with a guy named Jack, who's a grave robber, and he steals bodies to sell to that society so they can study, like doctors can study these bodies. And so he steals bodies for her, and she kind of like helps him steal the bodies, but like she goes along with it. And it's their story. Again, gothic, because it's that very like almost Edwardian England style vibe is like the best way to describe it, like that gritty gothic way of looking at the world. And again, you're digging up bodies, and it's medicine and surgery. So if you are squeamish and you don't like medical things, things are described in both of these books. But this is a very good sequel, and I really enjoyed it. The next question is a new release you haven't read yet, but you want to. And I want to, but I'm scared. And that's what this one is. And that is House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas, which is the third book in the Crescent City series by this author. I've read the first two. This is the only one I haven't read. It came out in like March, I think. It is a chunk. And that hasn't stopped me in the past because I've loved the other two. I have it on Audible, so like I have the audiobook there. I think I'm just nervous because I've heard a lot of mixed emotions or mixed reviews. People who like me loved the first one, and it's probably one of their favorite Sarah J. Maas books, period. Didn't like the second one and was let down by the third one. I also know people who devoured and loved this one. So I am genuinely terrified of what this is going to be. I know I'm going to have to give it like my full attention when I do, just because I am obsessed with the series and I have a problem. But I think if I'm correct, this is the end. I think she might be, again, I don't know where I got this information from, so people who are better in the know, listen to them. But I'm under the impression that this is going to be like ACOTAR, where the first three are like a trilogy, and then she's going to add a few things on that are part of the world, but aren't this plot, if that makes sense. So, terrifying, but I really want to get to this one. I like need to know, you know, like Crescent City is the series that got me into Sarah J. Maas. Even though it's her newest one, it was the one that I read first. And then I read ACOTAR, and it was amazing. So like I need to know. I need to get into this. But here we are. I'm terrified. It's huge. That's my story. The next one is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year. This one comes out, actually, I think it's technically out by this point, but it's Wisteria, which is the third book in the Belladonna series. It's only 3. It's the last book. I have the first 2, which are Belladonna and Foxglove. Read them both. Loved them. And this one is the third and final installment, and based on how the last one ended, I need answers. Looking at the second half of the year, this is the one I'm the most excited for. So it definitely gives me like fall vibes. So I'm thinking the fall will be a good time to read this. It follows our main character Signa, at least in the first book, where she has been really close to death, and all of the guardians that she's had have died. Her parents died when she was really young, so she's kind of been gifted from like guardian to guardian, and they all kind of meet some sort of demise. So they keep doing that because the guardian that will be with her when she comes of age will get like a stipend basically for taking care of her because she's got all this huge fortune ready to go. And so the book starts with her last guardian dying, and she gets sent off to her cousin's house. Now her cousin just lost his wife. Now this is like an older cousin who just lost his wife. He has 2 kids, a son and a daughter, and the daughter is really, really sick and seems to be dying and going the same way as his wife does. Now, like I said, Signa's really close to death, so she can see ghosts. That's like one of her things that she could do. And she sees the ghost of this cousin's wife that has died, and the cousin's wife is basically like, I got poisoned, and I think the same thing is happening to my daughter. Please figure out what's going on. So the first book is a murder mystery of sorts. The second book, again, a murder mystery of sorts, but a different one. And a third one, I have no idea where we're going, but like things are happening. So I love it. Again, spooky, gothic, perfect for fall. Our guest has moved, clearly. So the next one is Your Biggest Disappointment, which I don't own anymore, but it was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I did a spoilery vlog on this one. It was part of my new series, which was like hyped books that I wanted to read. I'll leave it linked above if you're curious. But I had been so hyped as this big, super cozy fantasy, which was like my vibe, and I really thought it was going to be really good. And it was really boring. I didn't like how it was written. That was my biggest issue with it, is that it was written, which, okay, so it was written in a way that's like very straightforward and very like scientific, which makes sense because the character of Emily Wilde, it's her like journal that you're reading, and she is very straightforward, doesn't understand that like she kind of like will rub people the wrong way socially. Like she comes to a new area and she doesn't have the social and culture norms, and so she does things that comes off as rude, and so people don't like her. And so there's things like that that don't work for her. And so the book is written like a scientific journal, and for the character of Emily Wilde, totally makes sense. I understand why it was written that way. Still drives me nuts. I do not like her. And so I think I gave this 3 stars, which I think was a pretty generous rating, if I'm honest. Like, there was a romance element, it was fine, but like this one, just, I thought it was going to be this amazing, amazing book, and it was just, you know, like it just didn't work for me. So the next one was Biggest Surprise, which was The Measure by Nikki Erlich. This one I read, why did I read this book? It was super random. Oh, it was Books Recommended. That's what it was. I did like my Books Recommended by you guys series that I didn't finish last year, so I finished it at the beginning of this year, and this was one of them. And it's a contemporary sci-fi story where you are, one day, everyone wakes up with a box on their front step, and in it is a string. And the string represents the length of your life. And so there are, and then it's basically like follows all these bunch of different people in this world as society responds to this. Some people have really long strings, some people have really short strings. And so there are support groups for the short stringers, for people who are going to die in like X amount of months, years, because scientists have figured out, based on the length, like how to guess how many more days, years, months, whatever you have left based on the length of your string. And so you have that, and then it's just everybody's reaction to that, because some people do not do well, and then there are some things like politics get involved, all of this stuff. So it was super interesting, and I didn't think I was going to like it going in, because I've never really read anything like this kind of like speculative kind of vibe, but it was very well done. So I really enjoyed this book, and I did not expect to. So I definitely want to read some more things. I've read some other things that are similar vibe-wise to it, and I've really enjoyed it. So I think this is a new genre or subgenre for me that I'm going to kind of investigate a little bit more, I think. All right, the next one is Favorite New Author, whether that is a debut author or a new to you author. So I have 2, and they're both new to me. They're not new. It's John Mars and Lisa Jewell. They are thriller mystery writers. Lisa Jewell wrote None of This Is True, which I absolutely loved, and honestly was a contender for my favorite book of the year. If it hadn't been for Happy Place, it would have been that book. And I've definitely picked up a few other books by Lisa Jewell because I'm super interested to see what her writing is like what other books are like, because that one I read was so good. And then same thing with John Mars. He wrote The One, which was one that I read, I think in March of this year. March or April, I think it was March. And it was another kind of speculative, contemporary sci-fi-esque story. It gave me the same vibes as The Measure, so like I read it and I went, yes, this is it kind of solidified that this was a subgenre for me. I just enjoyed that one, and I've looked into other books by this author, and there's quite a few that have the same vibe, I think, as The One, in that speculative kind of style. So I definitely want to dive more into his books as well. But those are 2 authors that I knew of but hadn't read until this year. A new fictional crush. Okay. This one, I always hate this question because like there are people that I love in books, but like I just don't do fictional crushes very well. But I recently read Kissing Kosher by Jean Meltzer, and the main male love interest in this one, Ethan, I love him, and I just want to like keep him forever, because like he is. So this book, hold on. So this book is a like Romeo and Juliet-esque vibe, because you've got 2 rival Jewish bakery families. One of them has gone very corporate and kind of does prepackaged things, which is Ethan's family. And the other one, which follows our other main character, Avi, her family has like the brick and mortar store. So Ethan's grandfather basically says, hey, you're gonna go get hired as at this other bakery and steal their like big, it's like there's this pumpkin baked good that's like the thing they're known for. So it's the two of them. But Ethan is like working through a ton of stuff because he's been scarred in his life by a few things. Avi has a chronic illness, specifically pelvic pain. It's way more than that, but like that's the easiest way to describe it. And so there's romance that blossoms between them. And so you see Ethan who's trying to deal with his own stuff, but like being like one of the best people ever, because like he does all the right things for Avi. Like Avi's going through some stuff and she's never really let anybody in romantically, especially after having a chronic illness, trying to figure out what her life is going to be like. And Ethan's right there proving all of her fears wrong. So I just love them, you know, but Ethan is just so sweet and he just does everything right, you know? So yes, him for sure. The next one is your favorite character. So I chose Mary from The Other Bennett Sister by Janice Hadlow. I was actually gifted this by one of you guys. I'm trying to do everything one-handed. Elizabeth. So thank you, Elizabeth. And I absolutely love this. So I'm obsessed with the character of Mary in Pride and Prejudice because she's the middle sister, she's the forgotten sister, and the original text has given her like almost no personality. So there's a lot to work with there. And I've read some readaptions or reimaginings of Mary's life that were just or genuinely not good. And so this one I was told was much better than some of the other ones I read. And you were not kidding. This is my favorite. I just love this one because like the character of Mary was not forgotten. Like what we already know from Pride and Prejudice, some of the other ones that I've read, it felt like the author really wanted to write a fan fiction, and so they just happened to choose Mary and made a fan fiction where like one of them, Mary ended up with Darcy, and that just no, like that in what world, you know? So I just really like this because we got, like I said, a realistic story. I think on the character of Mary, I feel like yes, she had some character development in the story. You kind of have to because there's nothing you're given with in Pride and Prejudice, but this was done in a realistic way, I think. So yeah, I just love that one. It was so good, and I love Mary in that one too. The book that made you cry, Happy Place. Like I mentioned earlier, I cried because I think this one was super, super realistic to my life, and I read it at the right time when things were changing. Like we were preparing for a baby, and the baby could have come. Like we were still a couple of months out, but like the baby could have come at any point, and like we were preparing. We were starting to do like the nursery and stuff. Like it was time, go time. And this one was just, again, right place, right time. Ending made me cry. I had a lot of feelings. I mean, yes, some of that might have been that I was very emotional and hormonal at the time, but I don't think so. I think a lot of this just like the story hit, you know. The next one is a book that made you happy. So for this one, I chose the second volume of Cutie and the Beast. This is a manga series that I own the first one, and it is not something on the surface I should enjoy because it follows a boxer, and I do not care the slightest bit about any sort of martial arts, MMA, fighting, wrestling, anything like that. Like that's just not my thing. So the fact that this guy was a wrestler should have worked, but did. So there's only 4 books in the series, so I'm halfway there, and I really need to figure out some way to get my hands on the other 2 because I cannot find them anywhere. But this one, this story just makes me happy because we follow our 2 main characters. One, the guy is a wrestler, like I mentioned, but he's known for being like this big buff kind of guy, and he maybe the villain is he's not a villain, but like that's kind of like the persona he plays. And because of that, he doesn't have a lot of followers, but he does have one follower that's like always there, and like they kind of message each other on what I envision of like a Twitter kind of platform, or sorry, an X kind of platform. So the girl who messages him is in high school. So there is an age gap, and they talk about it. That's what I like about this is like, yes, it's a cute romance. Yes, there's some stuff in it that I'm like, okay, realistically, no way. But they don't just brush it under the rug. It's actually talked about, especially by her family. Like they know that there's an age gap, and they know that it's a little bit of a weird age gap, but they're not going to do anything inappropriate and until she's of age, and like her parents are involved, and her dad is a big no-no for this relationship, but he gets to know the boxer a little bit more. And so there's just, I think it's handled as best it can be handled. Again, I'm only halfway through, so things could change. But as of right now, it's just fun and cute, and I really enjoy reading it, and I love their romance. And I like to pretend that the age gap isn't there, honestly. The next one is your favorite adaptation, TV, movie, whatever. So mine is The Lady Janie's, or sorry, My Lady Jane, written by The Lady Janie's. And this one was turned into an Amazon Prime TV show. I just found out that it has been canceled and there's no more seasons, and I'm kind of bitter about it because it was such a good adaptation. And I think they did a good job because they took, yes, there's a lot more to it. It's, of course, if you're turning that into a TV show, you've got to enhance a lot of the side plots. So there's a lot more added to the story that's not in the book. I get it. But they kept the vibe, which was this goofy, joking kind of narrative style where they are making fun of history. And they kept that in the show. And so I think that they did a really good job. Honestly, I think the adaptation might be better than the book. Don't come for me, but I think it might be. So yes, that one by far is my favorite adaptation. The next one is your favorite video that you've done this year. So I have a couple actually. So I think obviously our baby announcement. I love our baby announcement video. I think it was, I mean, it's stuff that's new. Like, it was this fun new life thing that I got to share. So like that was really fun for me. So on a personal level, I was really excited about that. But as far as like book specific, I was really proud of the like books I shouldn't like vlog is what I call it. I'll leave it linked above. But it's the one that like took me 2 years to do because I read the first book for it 2 years ago and then like just never got back to it. And I finished it before she came because I was like, I'm not going to read Priory of the Orange Tree, this big, huge, epic fantasy while she's here. That takes a lot of my attention. So I like that because I liked the planning of it. I liked the originality, I think, on my part. At least I haven't seen anything like that before. And I was really proud with the picks because the books were all very different. And it made me read some things I would not have tried before this. And I found some books I really enjoyed. So yeah, I was really proud with how that one turned out. So those two, which of course I will link down below if you are curious and haven't seen those. But yeah, I would say those two for sure. The next one, the most beautiful book that you have bought or received this year. So I am biased because my favorite color is in this cover. But it is Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco, which is the first in her new like Sin series. I don't remember what it's called, but there's a second one coming out later this year. But it's set in the same world as Kingdom of the Wicked, which you guys know I haven't stopped talking about. It's one of my favorite series of all time. I am obsessed with that series. And this one takes the other Princes of Hell that we meet in that series, but don't have like their own stuff. And they have separate stories. This one I really want to say is Envy. Yes. But look how beautiful all those flowers are. I'm obsessed with purple flowers. So, is it any wonder? I thought for sure this question was going to be like one of my special editions, but no. I'm obsessed with this one. So, I don't really know anything about that book. I just know that it's set in the same world and follows characters I love. And I just love her writing about this world. So, I'm so excited. And my aunt gifted me this because she had an extra copy. And I said, yes, please, thank you. So I really need to get around to this one. But it's just so pretty. So I keep looking at it and I'm not even holding it up. It's just so freaking pretty. I'm obsessed with it. And the final question. We've made it to the end. Are books that you want to read by the end of the year. So I have 3 because of course I do. And I think these are going to be in my fall TBR if I haven't read them before I make that video. We've got Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas, which I'm hoping to get to before the end of this month. We'll see. The one that I'm currently reading is taking me a lot of time to get through, so we'll see. But this is the second book, well, third book if you count the Assassin's Blade, which is the first prequel. It's got like 4 or 5 novellas in it. This is the second full-length book. I read Throne of Glass earlier this year. It was again part of a vlog. I think it was the first in the like books that are hyped and I really want to read series. So those are spoilery if you'd like to check it out. But this is the second one. And I want to know where the story goes because I know that where we start in the story is not where we end. But at least in the first book, we follow Selena Sarkathian, who is an assassin and has been chosen to partake in these kind of trials to become the king's assassin. Now, she has been imprisoned for a couple of years, if not more. I can't remember how long. Before this, and so the prince kind of pulls her out of jail to partake in these trials, and if she wins, then she will get her freedom, except for having to, like, you know, basically kill people that the king tells her to. And she hates the king, like she's really against him. So I don't really know what the second one's about, but I know things are going to happen, and I'm very interested to see where it goes. It's not big yet, we're still in the smaller books, but I really want to dive into her Throne of Glass series, and I have not been doing a very good job of it. Another one is The Shadow Cabinet by Juno Dawson, which is the second book in the HMRC series, Her Majesty's Royal Coven, which I adored the first one. This one came out last year. Thought I was going to pick it up right away. Didn't. Still don't know why I haven't picked it up because there is a huge cliffhanger at the end of the first book that I still need answers for. The third one is supposed to come out, well, I thought it was supposed to come out this year, but I think it's going to come out next year. The prequel for this series came out this year. So, like, we've got stuff going down. But the first book, HMRC, basically follows these 4 women. It takes place in Britain, where there are witches and warlocks, and witches are more powerful, so they're the ones who are running the government, and it's a very matriarchal society. The HMRC is actually like the tax department in Britain, the UK, and so people who are not magical don't look too closely at it, but like it's their cover to have their own government. But it follows these 4 girls who, or I guess women now, who grew up together and trained together. They're all witches, and they've all kind of separated and done their own thing. One of them became the, like, I think it's the high priestess, but it's like the one running the government. One of them became a stay-at-home mom. One of them broke off and started their own kind of rival group, if you will. It's more diverse. And one of them is kind of just living in a small town. And the one that's in charge, the high priestess, gets this vision that there's a kid who's going to kind of bring apart the end of the world. And the high priestess brings this kid to the other one who's kind of like in a small town to train this kid, and kind of figure out what kind of magical powers they do have, and if they are going to bring apart the end of the world. It's way more than that. It's a lot about trans rights, and that is a huge part of the story, but it's not heavy-handed in my opinion. It was very well done in a way of, like, it is important to the plot. Like, it is a huge part of the plot, but it's not heavy-handed in the way it's addressed, I guess. I know Juno Dawson is trans herself, so it has come from a semi-real place, I would assume. But it's magical, and I love it. And again, cliffhangers at the end of the first book. I need answers, and I haven't picked them up yet. So I would love to pick up the second one. It just gives me, like, it's witchy vibes, so of course it's fall. And the final book is a Ruth Ware book, which is One Perfect Couple. This is one that I picked up from a book of the month a few months ago. I believe this is the most recent book that came out by this author. I don't remember a lot about what it's about, but it's a thriller, and I am invested. But it's a, like, game show? Yes. It's this person and her boyfriend are kind of in a rut, and they are given this opportunity to join the cast of a new reality TV show called One Perfect Couple. And it's basically, they live on this island where 2 of them will compete against 4 other couples in order to win a cash prize. But stuff obviously goes wrong. It's a thriller. I'm sure someone ends up dead. But I've read one Ruth Ware book, and I really enjoyed it. And there's just something about this that sounds really interesting. But yes, it's kind of tropical and summery, but it gives me those thriller vibes. So I want to get to that one, hopefully by the end of the year as well. But that's it. That is a look at my mid-year Freakout Tag. Like I said, tell me all, play along on the comments. But if you had to answer one question, what is a book or a few books that you want to get read by the end of the year? I would love to know what's kind of on your end of your TBR, if you will. So give me all the things that you're hoping to read. What do you think of this video? And I very much hope that you did. Don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you'd like to be part of this awesome growing family. I've got all my social media down there as well as other fun bookish links, so don't forget to check all that out. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!